Hey everyone. Today we're going to be looking at Matthew 28, which is the last chapter of Matthew. And it's a pretty short one, so why don't you go ahead and read it and we'll dive right in. So yesterday we left off. Jesus had just been crucified and laid in a tomb. So today, this is the third day after Jesus has been buried. And we see Mary Magdalene and the other Mary are going to his tomb. And they were probably bringing spices to put on his body. But there is an earthquake and an angel comes down from heaven. And if you've ever read about other angel appearances in the Bible, you'll know that they are usually pretty terrifying. And an angel's first words are usually "do not be afraid." And we see that here. The guards are so afraid, it says that they become like dead men. But the angel tells the women, "Do not be afraid." And he says, "I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So he rolls the stone out from in front of the tomb, and they can see that Jesus is no longer there, that he has risen. So they go and they're going to tell the disciples that he is risen. And then Jesus, he appears in front of them, and they worship him. It says, they're afraid yet filled with joy, and then they see Jesus, and that just must have been so amazing to see him there in front of him. But he tells them again to go and tell the disciples to go to Galilee to see him. And in the next section, we see the guards. They go and report to the chief priest of what happened. And even though they have just heard that an angel came down from heaven and that Jesus is gone, they still deny him. They are trying to cover it up. They tell the guards to tell Pilate that his body was stolen. They still refuse to believe in Jesus. And then the last section is called the Great Commission. The 11 disciples go up to Galilee like they were told, and they meet Jesus there and they worship him. And it said, but some doubted. I don't think they were doubting that he rose from the dead because he was there in front of them. But I think they were just kind of confused. Jesus had told them before that he was going to die, and they didn't get it. And he told them that he was going to rise again from the dead, and they didn't really get it. And now he's here before them when they thought that he was dead and gone. And they were probably just very perplexed as to what was going on. But, Jesus, he tells them this: "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." So he's telling them that he has all authority on heaven and earth. Kind of telling him that, I am the Son of God, and I have risen, and I have authority. And then he gives them instructions on what to do, because very soon after this, he ascends up to heaven. So he's telling them what he wants them to do still here on earth. He tells them to go and make disciples of all nations, which is very important. They are not just to make disciples of Jews, but also Gentiles. So anyone who is not from Jewish descent, like myself, I would be considered a Gentile. And Jesus is telling the disciples to also make disciples of Gentiles, to everyone on the whole earth. And he says to baptize them and to teach them everything that Jesus has commanded them. We no longer follow the Old Testament laws. Instead, we obey what Jesus has said, because Jesus has fulfilled the law for us. And we are to obey his words. And finally, he tells them that he is with them always until the end of the age. And as I said, he is about to physically leave them because he goes up into heaven. But he is always with us. We can always approach Jesus. We can approach God. And we have the Holy Spirit within us. So even though, they're not physically here in front of us, Jesus is still with us. And he will continue to be with us until the very end of the age, where he will physically come back. So this passage is so full of good news. And I hope that you would reflect. It's a very short chapter, but it is such an important one. And I hope you would reflect over all that it says, because it is amazing good news.